The mildly confusing story of Traitors' Rest, love, betrayal, and a two-headed dragon. Let's see what Discordian Kitty has to say about some of the secrets still hidden in Dragonflight as we approach the end of this expansion.
The Azerothian Archives is a new organization that seems to be something of a stand-in for archaeology. One of the activities introduced by this organization has been the Big Dig at Traitors' Rest, an area in the Azure Span that has always felt a bit mysterious due to the skeleton of a giant two-headed dragon that can be found here. Over the last few weeks,
I actually have not done this stuff. I've been totally like avoiding the whole dig site and everything like that. Maybe I should go do it because I care so much about the lore. But this two-headed dragon has been pictured a lot in things, and we have not seen like, whoa. Maybe she goes into it. She's going to, I'm sure. But why the hell this dragon existed, and why we haven't seen anything like it in the game since.
Finally gotten a chance to learn more about the history behind this place. In the first week, we were introduced to Traitors' Rest and given a brief description of its backstory. Our lead archivist, Edward this really cool Forsaken guy, has been smitten by Sindragosa ever since he was a child. When the opportunity came to travel to the Dragon Isles, he of course took it, and while we've been messing around with Razageth and Fyrak and all of that, Edward has been happily studying Sindragosa's memoirs at Algother Academy. Though this is news to us, we're told Traitors' Rest was already known to Azerothian scholars to be the location of a famous battle between Neltharion's troops, most notably a two-headed dragon, and the cultures of the Dragon Isles eons ago. According to Edward, the real surprise is evidence that the Blue Dragonflight was involved. Presumably he's asked them for more information and was refused an answer because Edward says the Blue Dragons are staying mum, but he's determined to solve the mystery anyway, for Sindragosa. During our investigations, we discovered that a group from the Blue Dragonflight traveled to Traitors' Rest to meet up with a Scale Commander Aberth.
Okay.
If this name seems familiar, it's because players met Aberth during our return to the Forbidden Reach. While grappling with the Dracthyr's legacy, Emberthal faced failed Scale Commander Aberth along with several others who now haunt the cave that Neltharion used to test his Dracthyr in. Emberthal passed this test, but Aberth was apparently found wanting. However, we learned during an Azerothian Archives techno-scrying mission that Aberth actually survived the trial, but that Neltharion had him killed afterwards, stating that he would allow nothing to stand in the way of his creation. So far, the Azerothian Archives do not yet seem to know what this creation was.
Yeah.
More on that later.
Yeah, what? Yeah, okay, more on that later. I'll let her cook. I was going to say,
Either way,
what creation?
The group of Traitors' Rest apparently anticipated an attack from Neltharion, and they were right. From the get-go, the information we learned in the first week does raise a lot of questions, and not the ones being asked by the archives. First of all, the idea that there was a famous battle between Neltharion and the creatures of the Dragon Isles long before his fall and betrayal is a bit of a surprise, considering the fact that back then he was a trusted leader.
Right, I'm guessing Neltharion was just a hothead from day one. You know, he was just a pissed-off dragon. It just kind of came with the territory of being the Earth Warder. And he was very militaristic, always felt that probably military was required to enforce and do the things that needed to be done. But he probably was the one of the aspects that never shied away from a battle. He was always willing to fight, always willing to get into it, and he probably thought it was necessary for things to get done.
Scale Commander Aberth in his Wayne's presence is another confusing mystery. The Dracthyr were a closely guarded secret by Neltharion, kept hidden in the Forbidden Reach and under his command with a powerful Titan artifact, the Oathbinder.
Yes.
Almost the moment this artifact broke, Neltharion organized for Malygos to put the Dracthyr under a stasis, and when he did, Malygos was surprised to learn of the Dracthyr's existence.
You know what's interesting about the Oathbinder and how when it broke he decided to freeze this entire army? You know, Neltharion talks a lot of shit about the Titans, but look how he just acted like one. Like, the second his Oathbinder broke, and basically his Dracthyr, his beloved Dracthyr army that he had created, could exercise some free will, he decided to freeze them in place. He was like, I'm not dealing with free will, fuck that shit. Interesting, and then he complains about the Titans and everything they've done, yet he was acting very Titan-esque here, with the way he responded to losing the Oathbringer.
The idea that sometime before then, some Dracthyr were merrily disobeying orders to hang out in the Azure Span with blue dragons, none of whom mentioned these creatures to Malygos, is weird, to say the least. What's more, while we do know from the Blue Dragonfly questline that Sindragosa had her suspicions about Neltharion that she regretted keeping to herself, the idea that she outright conflicted with him and was aware that he had created the Dracthyr and she still didn't say anything to Malygos about any of it is outright baffling. But this is just the first week, so let's take a look at what we learned next.
Right.
Over the next few weeks, we learned that the Blue Dragonflight and Dracthyr were joined by a group of Tuskar led by a strategist named Umtiel, and, in another major surprise, a group of Gerardin, whose leader's name was Garin.
Oh, Desjardins.
Gerardin are not known to be friendly towards dragons, but it seems that their involvement may have been inspired by an unusual relationship. In fact, Edward outright speculates that Umtiel and Garin were actually romantically involved. Sadly, the relationship...
Wait, what? These two were fucking... What? Did she say what I think she said? Was a Tuskar fucking a Desjardins? Hold on.
Sadly, the relationship ended in tragedy. In the 5th week, the relationship ended in Garin were actually romantically involved. That Umtiel and Garin were actually romantically involved. Sadly, the relationship ended in tragedy. In the 5th week, we learned that Garin the Gerardin was a traitor who was secretly working as an agent of Neltharion. An evil Gerardin. Groundbreaking.
Yeah,
Based
they
on the
all
body
are.
we uncovered, Garin was killed personally by
They're a
Antilla.
deep race.
In his records, Edward speculates once again that there was more than simple friendship between these two. It appears that Garin fell early in the battle, and Antilla's bone dagger was found near his remains. If what I suspected about them were true, I would not have blamed her for felling the man herself. Despite the Battle of Traitors' Rest famously involving Neltharion and the creatures of the Dragon Isles, but also no one knew about the Blue Dragonflight's involvement, or the Dracthyr, or the Tuskar, or the Gerardin until recently, leaving us wondering exactly what people thought the famed Battle of Traitors' Rest was before this dig. Neltharion's motives for attacking the area remained a mystery the archivists were determined to uncover. Ultimately,
I'm still confused. Is the two-headed dragon, did Neltharion fight against it, or was it part of his army? I'm guessing he fought against it. Because this thing's massive. Like, if you look at its skeletal remains, this thing's huge. Like, you fly over its double skulls. Its chest is literally buried above these trees here. I mean, yeah, this thing's massive. Massive. Its tail expands all the way down here. So, why did he kill it? What happened to it? Was this shit corrupted? I don't know.
Mystery the archivists were determined to uncover. Ultimately, we discover that he was after a certain tome that was being kept at the Azure archives, and the attack on Traitors' Rest was meant to be a distraction. This is, in fact, what prompted Sindragosa's involvement. While she didn't know which tome Neltharion was after, she had her suspicions, and so organized for several important volumes to be moved to other locations for safekeeping. Finally, when she was able to confirm his target and that it was safely hidden away from the archives, she joined the others at Traitors' Rest and helped save the day, defeating Neltharion's dragon personally. Edward may be satisfied with our findings,
so I think that two-headed dragon then was Neltharion's dragon. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. That was one of Neltharion's creations. Man, he was creating some crazy shit in Aberth. His lab was doing some kinky shit.
I still have questions. First of all, I still don't quite understand why, after this battle, Neltharion was still liked and trusted, and apparently never really...
Yeah, what the hell? He created this monstrosity dragon that the other aspects had to basically fight off, and then he was allowed to just kind of sit here. I mean, look, they're kind of all looking at him like pissed off if you actually look at this. But he was allowed to just kind of, you know, walk around and still be himself, the Earth Warder, and be trusted and everything.
Questioned about famously sending a two-headed dragon to attack a place in the Azure span. Secondly, the fact that the Blue Dragons, Gerardin, and Tuskar all apparently knew about Dracthyr, but not one person mentioned it to Malygos or anyone else, is a mystery that's never addressed. It's also confusing why Neltharion still went ahead with using the Dracthyr after this, trusting the Oathbinder to control them despite this evidence that the artifact failed in its purpose, and only later had them put in a stasis after the Oathbinder broke. Maybe Aberth, having managed to somehow break free of the Oathbinder's influence, knew how badly Neltharion would react if he ever found out about Dracthyr outside his control, and so swore everyone who met the Dracthyr to secrecy. It doesn't seem that Neltharion actually attended...
The Dracthyr were walking around with NDAs, making sure nobody talked about it. I mean, that could be it. Could be that they were, just, you know, anybody who they were nice enough to reveal themselves to, they knew that they would keep the secret away from Neltharion. Because Neltharion, the way he was, he probably would have killed him. I'll be honest, he probably would have killed him. He doesn't seem like he cares that much about his creations. He didn't seem emotionally attached to them in any way. And he would have just ended anyone who was, outside of his control. Again, very Titan-esque.
Ended the battle himself, so
Scalys
possibly
did
he
nothing
never
wrong.
heard about the Dracthyr's involvement, despite having a spy at Traitors' Rest. After all, Garen was discovered and killed, so maybe the Gerardin never got the chance to let Neltharion know about the Dracthyr presence. Sindragosa's decision to just forget to mention the fact that she had to hide an important tome from Malygos's best friend also remains odd. Possibly she worried that Malygos trusted Neltharion enough to simply offer to lend him the tome, but if that was the case, why would Neltharion have to try conspire to steal it in the first place? Finally, I'm intrigued by Neltharion's two-headed dragon.
Yeah.
Traitors' Rest is still haunted by the spirit of this two-headed, shadow-flamed infused, malevolent beast, and in fact, every dig ends with needing to once again defeat Doomshadow. Edward calls the creature Neltharion's two-headed experiment, and throughout the dig refers to it as a proto-dragon, though it really just looks like a standard chimera to me. Could it be that chimera in general are the results of Neltharion's experiments?
Ooh, that's an interesting thought. All chimera are, I even have a chimera from Shadowlands. I have the undead one from Maldraxxus. And that would be, sorry, not from Maldraxxus, it's actually from the dungeon in Maldraxxus. I forget what it's called, but you used to loot it off the first boss in that dungeon. Would that all of that be the result of creations from Neltharion? I mean, they do look deformed in a way, right? They're two-headed dragons, so that could be it. And we also, what's his name? There's that five-headed dragon experiment from the Titans that has all the spectral powers. So I mean, yeah, multiple heads from dragons usually does indicate some type of lab creation or something. So yeah, she could be right on that. Yeah, Chromatus. Yeah, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. All of these multi-head dragons are creations from lab experiments or Titan, stuff. Interesting.
Like Slither Drakes? Or, and this is
No,
probably
Moishi,
more
not your
likely, was the
D&D
Chimera
shit.
model just the closest thing to a two-headed dragon model that the quest designers had to work with? As I mentioned before, Neltharion later had Aberth murdered, stating that he wanted nothing to stand in the way of his creation. Clearly, he was still working on something, and Neltharion's family has become somewhat known for their draconic creations that result from experiments, from the Twilight Dragonflight to Chromatus. The name
There
of
it
the
is.
tome that
Yeah,
Neltharion was
Chromatus.
after has been lost to the ages, but maybe it contains some information that might have helped Neltharion perfect his experiment, whatever it was. At the moment, it's hard to know for sure, but for now, this is where the story of Traitors' Rest seems to end.
Oh man, interesting stuff. I had no idea. I've always used that two-headed dragon. I had it as my wallpaper for a while, not knowing that it was in fact Neltharion's creation. And it's very weird that the other dragonflights had to basically fight this thing off after Neltharion unleashed it on the world, and then they just let him back in like everything was fine. Very interesting. Sam, you have completed the tier storyline. I have not completed the full tier storyline, unfortunately. But very good video. Cool stuff, interesting stuff. I enjoy these. Discordian Kitty usually does good stuff, so check her out if you guys haven't already.